something to play again, Jeff.
Yes.
Running the risk of entering this interesting
Yep.
twilight zone. And is it okay to... Okay. Is it okay if Lynn trips up on the
Was
wires?
that a flying nun?
I was just about to promise that we wouldn't laugh through this one.
Oh, okay.
Well, it's just one of Lynn's bad habits. So, if we wanting to explore this issue, if that's okay with you, about the headaches that you've had for some time, that they've been part of your experience for what? Is it just recent or years or how long? Have they been?
Years.
Years?
Yeah, years.
Okay. And you found ways that getting some relief from them, you know, ways of helping them. And we've done some work here, and I think you had a conversation with David? Or am I hallucinating something? No?
That was over irritable bowel syndrome.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, you said there was shit in the back of your head.
Yeah.
So it might be related in some way. The bowel bone's connected to the neck bone somewhere. So there's something here that you have some worry about it coming, and you said that you're concerned about a migraine and you don't want that to happen. And you found some ways of lessening the headache and some ways of actually dispersing it at times, and yet it keeps coming back. Now it may be that this is just something for you to live with, like it's just something that keeps coming back, and it's a matter of finding how to have as little as possible, or just manage it as well as possible or something. But I'm also wondering if there may be some other area that we could explore. Would that be okay to wonder about that? And it might be useful if you could maintain just a little bit of wariness, because you don't want to do anything to create any discomfort. And it might be also useful if you had a little bit of wariness even about the possibility of doing something, because you don't want to raise your hopes and then have them dashed again.
Okay. Yeah.
So if you could be a little bit, I'm trying to find the right word, sort of cynical or resigned about it, that might be helpful too. If you were to think about the headache, and think about it in some way that you could recognise you had already a recurrent way of relating to it. There's you and you have these headaches. Now when you get them, what's your relationship with them, would you say? How do you think of them? How do you...
Usually, strange question. Something to be endured.
Okay.
Yeah. That there's a time limit on the headache.
So you kind of it's a matter of getting through it, and then you get to the...
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. And do you get them very often? Are they...
Once a week.
Once a week?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
I used to get them more often, but less
okay.
now.
How often did you used to get them?
One stage I'd get a headache a day.
Oh, really? So you've already managed to reduce that somehow. And how long do they last? Just typically, on a vary.
Yeah, they do vary, but they may last 4 or 5 hours.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And are they lasting less now or more than they used to? Or?
Less.
So they're fewer and they last a lesser time?
Yep.
And the intensity, is that also decreased, or is that?
Generally has.
Okay.
But when I get a whopper, it's a whopper.
Okay. And is there anything about that? Can you say, like, if you get, is it a matter of getting too long and then you get a whopper, or do they just come randomly? Or?
Every few months, every 2-3 months.
And a whopper is what, like intensity or duration? Or?
Yeah, usually a day, and just, fairly intense.
Okay. Okay. So it's a matter of somehow, whatever you're doing, something is happening. Yeah?
Yeah.
Over there, instead of getting it every day, you're getting it once a week. Instead of it lasting as long as it did, now it's down to 4 or 5 hours. And you do get a whopper of one, and occasionally, but also the intensity of the every day, the kind of normal once a week headache. So if you were to just watch that, if you just imagine that's a sort of something is happening there. It was this and it's now this. Where is it headed where would you anticipate? What do you see the future of this if it were to just evolve the way that it is? What's happening in 5 years, for example?
Oh, I suppose the possibility is that it's just diminished.
Diminished?
So if I have a headache, it might last for a few minutes.
A few minutes?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. I've been reading up about distorting that, time distortion.
Oh, yeah. So a few minutes, and maybe would it be still once a week, or would they be less often?
It'd be nice to have them less often.
Do you think it might happen? I mean, that's
Yeah.
the general
That's the trend if you look
Trend?
at it. Yeah.
less often, less
Less
intense,
frequently, maybe
less
once
duration.
a month. Yeah.
Once a month, a couple of minutes, and intensity. Would you anticipate that they may be less?
Yeah, much less.
Less?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Now, I'm just wondering, and it might be helpful for you to go only as deeply into this experience as you already have started to do something. And to just wonder, in whatever way might be useful to you, perhaps by looking at how you are relating differently to the headaches now than you used to. Whether there is less dread or less fear or less resentment or less I don't know what, that if you were to watch the gradation of that. And to wonder what is different in your relationship with the headaches now that they are shorter, less intense, less frequent. Is there a lessening of the endurance or?
Probably just an experiencing of them and awareness of them.
So there's a difference in that?
Yeah.
Can you say what the difference is?
I suppose it's just the intensity, so that the pain isn't that distracting. So it's a headache, but it's no big deal.
It's no big deal. So instead of enduring it, it's something that's become more irrelevant?
Yeah.
Or less relevant, should we say?
less relevant. It's
Less intrusive?
Yeah. A bit like shifting my awareness of it away from it, so it's still there, but not consciously.
Yeah. And I could imagine that it could seem that as it's less intense, it's easier for you to shift your attention away from it.
Yeah, very much so.
But I also can't help wondering if part of the decreasing intensity has been brought about by you shifting your way of attending to it. If there's, then that may be.
Yeah.
But I can imagine that it would seem that at the beginning or years ago it was of such intensity that it would be hard to distract yourself from it. But I can't help wondering if at that time there'd been some way of distracting yourself that may have reduced the intensity. It may have, I don't know. I'm just wondering whether that might have changed the...
Yeah, would have been harder back then.
Yeah, it would have been harder.
Yeah.
It would have been harder. It's easier now. But even though it was harder, I'm just wondering, obviously it can only be a speculation, wondering if you'd found a way back then of being less captivated by it, less taken over by it, more able to distract yourself from it, whether that may have in fact allowed this process to have been. I'm just wondering about that. But in any case, would you say that the headaches have been useful to you in any way? Do they?
Yeah, usually a signal.
To?
slow down.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. Or to slow down or pay attention to something. Something's going on.
Okay. And is that a recent recognition?
Yeah.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering if we were to speculate that, in a metaphoric way, that those headaches have been a little bit like Russ's client, where there are aliens there. In the way that, you know, we could make up a story in relation to that woman, that she was doing her best to ignore and distract herself from the aliens, but she didn't want them for very understandable reasons. But we could imagine that somehow, if instead of being blocking them out or avoiding them, if she started to listen to them and listen to the way they were singing to her, perhaps wanting to communicate something very helpful to her. It may be that if she were to listen to those aliens, she might hear some things that would be very helpful for her singing career. And it may well be that one of the things that they are wanting her to hear is, you don't need to try so hard. It's okay to just kind of settle into your voice and allow that voice to express itself without having to endure the effort of trying to force a sound out. We could imagine that the aliens might be trying to tell her that. And if you were to listen now to, in whatever way you can, to the memory of those headaches, or the memory of the voice of those headaches, or the memory of what they may have been, with increasing success, wanting you to hear, about slowing down, about paying attention to something that needs to be attended to. And I may have mentioned a man who saw Joseph Barber for some pain relief with his hip. You know, remember me telling you about him? You may know that Barber is regarded as something of an expert in relation to pain. He's written a couple of textbooks and many papers about this. And a man had been told that he had to have a hip replacement because he had arthritis in his hip. He had a lot of pain. He didn't want to have the operation. So he went to see Barber to get some assistance. And Joe worked with him over some time, trying to help him to deal with the pain which he was just enduring. And he actually got no benefit from that. So he then decided, oh well, if I can't get any help with the pain, looks like I need to have the operation, I need to do something about this, I need to attend to this, instead of be distracted or ignore it. And so he decided to go ahead with the operation. And the next day, he woke up and found that his hip felt just fine. Somehow pain had gone. So he then found himself thinking, well, if the pain's gone, maybe I don't need the operation. So he rang the surgeon, cancelled the operation. The next morning he woke up and the pain was back. And he was a bit mystified by this. Until he thought, well, maybe the pain's trying to tell me something. So he rescheduled the operation. Next morning the pain had gone. He then persisted with listening to the message of that. Had the operation, went very well. He healed very nicely afterwards and had no pain post-operatively. Got a very good result. And I wonder also whether in your experience you can think of people that you've spoken to face to face or on the phone, where there's been some part of their experience that's been trying to get their attention. That's been trying to get them to listen. And when they have listened to it, can you think of anyone that's into that category? Even while you're wondering who that might be, the idea is familiar enough to you, I think. Every evening when we're having our evening meal, our dog sits very patiently while we're having a meal. And as we're getting towards the end of the meal, she starts to back away from us and starts to make a sound. He's letting us know, well, we're having some dinner, she should have some too. If we ignore her, she'll sometimes make quite a loud bark or come and bonk you with her nose, trying to get our attention. And as soon as she gets a bit of something, a bit of whatever it is, doesn't need to be much, just a bit of gravy or a little bit of meat or something, she has that very enthusiastically, and she's quiet and peaceful. So is there someone that comes to mind that you can think of that?
Yeah, there is. Somebody actually that I was trying to help with migraines, interestingly enough. But who's I haven't had much chance or much luck in hypnotising them. Seem to be very resistant to it. Yeah.
And you're smiling as you're recounting this.
Yeah.
It's starting to make sense to you. Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, for her that the migraines are very frequent and are quite regular in terms, and there are triggers to the migraine that she started to recognise and look at. And it was interesting. We didn't, because we couldn't use hypnosis in a sense, we looked at what was happening around the migraines and what were the triggers, what was she doing.
Okay. And were there something in the recognition of those triggers that she found helpful? Not just in avoiding the migraine, but in attending to something?
Yeah, her awareness is there, her migraines are still there, because she hasn't changed her behaviour.
Not yet.
Not yet.
And it would be a shame if she changed her behaviour before she learnt what she needed around those triggers.
Yeah, does that make sense?
Well, I mean, it's tempting to say, oh, if I eat chocolate, I'll get migraines, so I won't have chocolate. You know, like that's a trigger.
Well, she does eat chocolate and get migraines.
Yeah, but it might be also nicer, instead of saying, oh, that's a trigger, so I need to avoid it, to wonder what potential learning there is there. What is it that the migraines are doing for her? What is it that, like you said about needing to slow down, what is it that's doing for her?
Yeah, well, we even looked at why she eats chocolate.
Oh, okay.
And what was before that.
Okay. And a lot of people eat chocolate as a kind of nourishment or a self-soothing kind of self. I was going to say indulgent. That sounds bad, but like a self doing something just for themselves.
Yep.
So does she have trouble doing things just for her? Is she someone who likes to do things for other people?
Yeah, she does have trouble doing things for herself. Yeah.
So it may be that a migraine has been, in an indirect way, trying to remind her, you can do things just for you. I'm not saying that's the case, but it may be.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if you might want to just close your eyes for a moment. And just let all of that and perhaps if you would just take a moment and not try and make sense of anything. Perhaps if for a moment you just put aside any natural tendency to want to understand, to want to resolve, to want to find an answer to this, a solution to this. Put aside the natural tendency to wanting to find out anything that will help you to feel comfortable in your head instead of having a headache. But if you would just put all that aside for the moment and just wonder what might be there that could be useful for you. You mentioned already slowing down. You mentioned already paying attention to some things that need to be attended to. But even if you were to put those aside, then just look, as it were, beyond them or through them or around them. And just looking, wondering what it might be. What might emerge, what might come into your awareness that doesn't even necessarily need to make sense or even have any obvious relevance. So when you're looking at the moment, what are you seeing?
Well, it's a bit about sort of a strong word, but not abusing myself.
Okay. Now when you're not abusing yourself, that is a strong word. What would be an equally strong word that you would be doing when you're not abusing yourself?
Or nourishing.
Nourishing. Good. And when you look at that, and you start to sense that, how that is for you to nourish you. How do you sit with that? As you wonder about that, as you explore that, what happens to you?
I feel more peaceful.
Okay.
Calmer.
Okay. And as you let yourself experience that peaceful, calmer feeling, if you were to look around in your experience, if you were to look through your body, if you were to look around in your life, is that okay?
Yeah.
Now, it might seem a very large step to move from such a strong word as abusing yourself. 2, this other experience of nourishing yourself with that peaceful karma feeling. When you look at that, when you look at those 2 experiences, how does it seem to you, how it can be useful for you to move from one to the other? Does it seem like an easy thing? Or does it seem like a long process that you have to endure? What do you, when you look at that, what's your response?
Fairly easy, I think.
Easy?
Yeah.
Okay. You think it's you're not sure. And it might be useful for you to hang on to just a little bit of that uncertainty, so that you don't think, oh, this is easy, I can do this, you know? Which might be trivialising it, or might be, might miss the opportunity to thoroughly. I'm talking about nourishing, you know, if you eat too quickly, it sort of doesn't touch the sides. It might be nice to give yourself time to digest and fully absorb that. Not only the peaceful, calmer feeling, but also that transition from one to the other. Do you have a sense of how you can go either way across that transition? Are you feeling more peaceful now?
Well, I'm just thinking it's nice not to have a headache now.
Okay. Well, I wonder if instead of focusing on the headache, if you could just notice the peaceful, calmer feeling. And if you could somehow, don't worry about the headache, we're not interested in that for the moment, but if you could just notice how you could get back to that previous experience of being harsher on yourself, what you called using that harsh word of abusing yourself. If you could go back to that, to notice the feeling of that, not the headache, well, but the feeling of that. Do you have a sense of how to move back to that?
Yeah.
Okay. Are you back there now? Right. And now can you move over? What's it feel like? In my image, I've got an image of a bridge going over something. I don't know, how do you experience moving from one to the other?
It's like a line.
A line? Okay. What's the line like? What's it?
Or a band.
A band?
Yeah. Just a straight band. Going from one end to the other.
Well, what end? What's the end? And how do you experience the ends? Is there something you see or feel? Or
Yeah, it's a
see?
feeling. Feeling, yeah.
Okay. Now, you don't have to put it into words unless it's helpful, but can you get some sense of noticing those ends?
Yeah.
And noticing that band with the feeling that you can go either way.
Yeah.
It's a two-way. The distance between the two ends is the same from whichever end you move. And can you have the opportunity to let yourself notice how it is to just move to and fro across that?
Yeah.
And feel how that is for you. And getting to know that feeling of moving this way and that way and backwards and forwards this way. So you get to know how to do that. You've done that unknowingly. And you've done that with increasing efficacy. And it may well be that as you learn how to do that with even greater feeling of fluidity, of just being able to move this way, that way, then that can be very helpful for you. And it may even be that as you can learn to move from one end to the other, and learn how to do that, you won't need the headache to remind you. You might be able to do that independently. Do you think that's possible?
Yep.
Not sure?
Not sure.
No. No, we can't be sure about that, but it's possible. And I think it would be a terrible thing if you were to pin your hopes on this. But you can see that it's possible. And possible enough for you to be willing to play with a bit. Okay. So would it be okay if over the next while you were to find yourself playing with that a bit?
Yeah.
And maybe even in a kind of semi-regular kind of way to practice that? Might be like a kind of meditation even. You could practice moving from one end to the other. And it might make a lot of sense to you if I were to say that it would be really helpful if you would not let the headaches diminish until you have found out whether doing this will help or not. Because you wouldn't want to lose your headaches totally, only to find that they come back, or to lose your headaches totally, only to find that something else comes back as a way of pushing you from one end to the other. Does that make sense for me to say that? So it might be nice if you could avoid letting the headaches go. It might be nice if you didn't diminish the intensity, duration, frequency of the headache. It'd be nice if you didn't totally lose those headaches just yet, because you want to make sure that you're on solid ground, that learning really is and so that it will. Now, you can do that intentionally, practicing moving from here to there. You can dream about moving from here to there. You can allow that to happen outside of your awareness. I don't know, and you don't need to know, even after you will have succeeded at this. just how you will have done that. But it can be an area for exploration, for curiosity, for learning. And you do appreciate learning. So then part of that movement, part of that unfinished business about the peaceful calmness can then come into the foreground and be completed before it just dissolves into the background of your general comfort and peaceful feeling. And that's why trying to attend in any effortful way, being concerned about the time, allowing this experience to be something that didn't need to be endured, but you could even in some way feel nourished by it. An opportunity for you to feel peaceful, calm. And without needing to have anything special in your awareness, just that you're here. Perhaps you can, I don't know, when you're ready, let your eyes open. Just let yourself have the experience that you're having. It might be nice if you could be peaceful and calmer, but we know that we live in the real world and can't be peaceful and calm all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But it's nice to know that there are ways of getting back to that. So, what have you been up to since we're here last week? Been doing? Have you been doing a lot of night work, or
No, I've been
last night?
been on holidays.
Oh, really?
Mm.
How excellent!
Mm.
So you weren't on the phone last night?
No,
Okay.
no, I was on the grog.
Was it good grog?
Oh, it couldn't have been that good. I think it
Couldn't
gave
have
me a
been
headache. Yeah.
Oh.
I wasn't on too much.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Mm.
yeah. Not too much of a good thing, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, is that a place that we could stop and maybe some